Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We're just going to get started in just a minute.
Green lights all around.
Yep. Tim, can you hear us?
Kate, can you hear us?
Thanks, Keith.
All right, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Morning, everyone. Apologies for the delay. We had a couple presentations that went over in the previous meeting. But call the meeting to order at 10:40. And prior to today's meeting, the board met in closed sessions to review and discuss matters that, in their opinion, fell under Section 35 of the Police Services Act, as well as the Ontario Police Services Bylaw, Section 19.1, closed items. Moving on to item number 2, we have a motion to approve the agenda. Garth? Ian?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Declaration of conflict of interest arising out of the minute, the matters listed on the agenda. Hearing none. Presentations, deputations, and public questions, period. We'll move on now. We have a presentation, I think, from Larry Gill, the Director of Facilities from the city. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning. I think what I'll do, if it's okay, is I'll let Kate go first. We're going to split this presentation up. So.
Oh, it says I can't share my screen. Is that possible to?
Yeah. You should be good now.
All right, I have about 1 minute here and then I'll just move back to Larry here. But what I'm sharing is so we're here to talk about the police facility as it relates to maintenance as well as capital. What I have on the screen here is going to be familiar to Craig. He attended our capital budget meeting last week, and this is the 5-year capital plan as it relates to the police facility. The items highlighted in yellow are not currently funded. So we would be looking for a funding source for those items prior to moving forward. The large one being the air handling unit, which is shown there in 2026 for $1.2 million. Larry is going to speak about the facility assessment audit, which is planned to take place this year. And that's really going to dictate exactly what the projects are that move forward and the priority of them. So I would say that while the funding is here and the projects are identified, the order and the timing could very well change after we undertake the facility assessment audit. So I will send this document to you and it can be distributed to the board afterwards in case it's difficult to see the finer details. And then I've also included in this a second tab, which shows all of our corporate facilities and sort of how much money we've allocated to them over the 5-year period. So the police building is in the middle there, and we have over roughly $940,000 to spend on that building. Like I said, How it gets spent and when it gets spent could change depending on what the facility audit dictates. But that is allocated now, fully funded now. So as long as the projects can fall within that envelope, they can move forward. And just for reference, I've included other city facilities just so you can see ballpark how that funding level compares to other facilities in the city of Owen Sound. Unless there's any questions about that specifically, I'll defer to Larry, who has a bit more details about the facility audit and maintenance of the building.
Okay. I take it there's no questions. And if so, I will carry on. So thank you, Kate, for that. And just kind of segue in. I have two components I'm going to speak to today. One is the facility maintenance program that we're working on currently, and two is the facility audit. Diving into the facility maintenance program, what we've done is we've introduced a pilot maintenance program that sees our facility staff going through the building weekly. And what the goal of it was to try and create more of a proactive maintenance program as opposed to more of what would be called a reactive. We're in the early stages, we're maybe about 6 weeks in or 7 weeks in, but I think I did speak to Craig last week, and I got the feeling that it is going fairly smoothly on your end, and as well as we're seeing successes as well. And talking to the facility crew on the ground, they're able to quickly and efficiently go through the building, and they're giving it just kind of a visual scan, touching and feeling doors and those minor issues. And then if they see concerns that are at a larger scale, or that are potentially going to take some third-party support, those projects are being put into a schedule, and we've got a kind of a hierarchy made as to the importance depending on what the situation is. The second component to that is we have a facility request form that is a form that staff can fill out and send into our facilities department. And basically if they see a concern or an issue, we ask them to just describe it in detail. It's a form, takes about 5 minutes to fill out. They submit it, and then our facilities crew is usually fairly reactive within a day or two to come and assess the situation and work with the facility operators to mediate the issue. Does anyone have any questions around the facility maintenance component?
I think it sounds good.
Okay, so moving on to what's maybe more exciting for me is the facility audit that we're going to conduct. So I'm very curious to see how this will play out. So I'm working with the purchasing department right now to get a request for quote put together. We're in the draft sort of stages, so we've still got some work to do. It's hopeful that we can get that out late May, I'm anticipating. And what we're going to do is we're looking for some professional consulting to advise us on where the issues are, rate the issues, along with giving us some values so we can try and put that in to our program. So it's kind of creating a roadmap for us that will see us hopefully navigate into the next number of years to have more robust maintenance program, as well as taking on some of these larger capital projects that we might be faced with at the facility. So that's those are just the two components I wanted to speak to. And if there is any other questions, I can share my notes if you would like, but if it's explained well enough, we can just leave it with that.
Any questions from members of the board?
No, I don't have any questions, but Larry, I'm glad, I've listened to these guys around here, squawk at me for several years. You said that it was a reactive method. They're going to argue that it's been an unreactive method probably the last few years. So it's really good that you're putting together a plan of going through this, and it is a city building, and putting it into the mix with everything else so that we can move forward and tackle things in the coming years and have a plan of how we're going to do it. So that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions from anyone? So I appreciate the time that you've taken on this. Maybe you could send us your notes just to so that we can put them in the minutes properly. And great.
If I may just have
Sure.
a comment. I just want to acknowledge the work with the city and the work with Larry and the work with Kate and the city manager on the building and on the facilities audit, and we're moving forward. And certainly there's been a lot of progress, and it's been recognized on the police side of it. And I just want to acknowledge the work that's been done on the city end in order to move this forward and get everything looked after and budgeted. And I know that we continue to work on some ongoing renovations here, and we've had a lot of assistance from the city and guidance, and it doesn't go unrecognized. I just want to formally recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate, did you have something, Kate? I didn't know I saw your hand up there.
No, I was just saying thank you, and I was waving because I was about
Okay, all right, good.
to.
All right, so I'll wait and say thank you very much, and thank you for your time, and if there's no other questions, you can continue on with your day. Thank
Great.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Having that out of the way, moving to item number 5, confirmation of the minutes of the public session held March 23, 2022. A motion for those? Ian,
Yep.
Thank you. John, second. Jill, all in favor? Any business arising out of the public session minutes of the March 23rd meeting? Hearing none. In correspondence, we received the Crime Stoppers Tipster magazine. There's a lot of information there. It's good that you're sending it out. It's good to have a higher profile. Under Chairman's report, and I think you'll all recall the Community Safety and Policing Grant Program funding that was announced back, I guess, April 15th. And this included funding for three local initiatives here. 1.2 for the enhancement of the city's force community-oriented response and enforcement unit. The core, as everyone knows it here. 690,000 over 3 years for part-time officer program. And lastly, 150,000 for the local mobile mental health and addiction response team. And I know that you've all heard this before and everything else. The reason I bring it up here is that I'd like to acknowledge publicly the great work that's been done by Inspector Bishop and some of the other ones behind the scenes, without whose work and dedication these grants would have happened. The government just doesn't hand out grants randomly. You have to apply for them, and you have to put together a good rationale and information as to why you're deserving of these grants. So thank you to the staff here, not only around the table, but those that are behind the scenes working diligently. And I think they need our vote of confidence on that, and thank you for that. Moving on Tuesday, April 12th, I had the opportunity to attend the First Responder Iwi Cultural Mindfulness training put on by Mitiquidong Friendship Center at the Silver Lake Mennonite Camp. It was an all-day event, and training is facilitated by Diane Giro. She's a Iwi coordinator, and George Couchy. George is a retired member of the OPP with 33 years of policing experience, and he also was one of the presenters, or I guess negotiators, during the Upper Wash crisis. So he has a lot of past experience in dealing with these types of issues. The other item that I have was not sure if the board members received the update from Pat Weaver, Chair of the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards. He announced that Lisa Darling has been appointed as the new executive director of the OAPSB. That'll be effective May 2nd. And she'll be taking over the role previously held by Fred Constantine. So that's Lisa's got 27 years of experience with the OPP, and she should be good addition. I think Craig, you were saying too, her sister is also.
Yeah, so she's very knowledgeable. Good background.
So no doubt to be more that we'll hear about her come the AGM, Ontario Association of Service Boards AGM coming up at the end of May. And I think all of you are registered and attend in person or by Zoom to that meeting. That being said, I'll turn it over to Inspector Bishop for item number 9, report.
Have investigations for drugs. First one. Yes. Thank you, everybody. So, for criminal investigations and drugs, first item there. Middle of March, we had a 20-year-old own sound man, well known to us, had posted on social media with a handgun and 2 loaded magazines, making reference to the idea that he had a new toy. He'd been just recently charged by the OPP prior to that, pointing a firearm robbery with firearm and possession of a weapon for dangerous purpose. So that obviously caused some concerns. Our service did a home visit to try and follow up on this and found him not at home, which breach of his conditions, which led to us doing some checks and later finding him leaving his residence in the vehicle, again, outside of his conditions. At the time of his arrest, when he stopped, he actually assaulted one of our CIB officers fairly severely, managed to hit him, but the officer ended up actually with a fractured orbital bone, ended up missing a couple of days of work as a result of that. Swollen eye, broken blood vessels, and also a concussion. In terms of the initial firearm, it was determined that it was a bogus post. He had found the picture on the internet and just posted it. Was never in possession of the firearm, but he got a number of charges as a result of the incident that I just described. So, the next one on here is actually kind of interesting. So between 2017 and 2022, we had a residence that was repeatedly reporting to us that the home was being pelted with vegetables and fruit at all hours of the day. And given that we now have our surveillance capabilities, we sent our surveillance officer out with some assistance to install a covert camera at about 4:25 in the morning. And he was in the middle of doing that, and all of a sudden it was incoming. And whatever the coincidence happens to be, that it was literally 4:25 in the morning when the young gentleman from the house behind decided to go out and carry on with what had been going on for a number of years. So lucky to say the least, but he ended up being charged. He's a young man with some mental challenges, but that's been going on for a number of years, and no other, as I understand it, haven't been conducive to getting that problem resolved. So it's going to work its way through the courts, hopefully end up in the health court, and the president who was the recipient of all this was quite thankful for us being able to find a result for him. So, we assisted the OPP with a drug warrant. There's one warrant that happened here. There was quite a number of warrants executed throughout Grey and Bruce County under their Project Patty, targeting a high-level drug trafficker, 60-year-old male from Barrie, facing quite a few charges, and total value of their seizure was approximately $82,000. Some firearms and a number of other items. So happy to help with that. Our homicide from almost a year ago continues to create work for us. So we had to send a couple officers over to CNCC to execute some DNA warrants on 2 males related to the homicide. That's what happened last month. You see, there's quite a bit of uniform assistance, which happens on a daily basis when the officers are in. One that's on here, March 12th, was convoy. I think that was the last one that we actually saw in terms of the string of various protest convoys that have been going on. We were assisting with back through March, whether it's the $2 gasoline or lifting some of the restrictions, but at least for now, they seem to have eased a little bit. So we're hoping that that carries on. We don't have a summer spent a lot more The remainder is just to give you some idea of what goes on in the CIB office and what we end up being tasked with. CMR had a mental health had a busy month. 30 follow-ups, 9 officer referrals, 6 community support consultations, and a number of other items. A couple of officers away on a conference, and luckily March did not have any additional drug overdose deaths, so fingers crossed that trend continues. We're at 3 for the year, and we're going into May, so that's hopefully we're going to see a reduction this year. I'm hoping. Any questions? CIB and drugs. Auxiliary unit. The auxiliary unit is now back up and running. We have members going back out on patrol and assisting with our uniform branch. The photos that you see there are just highlighting 2 of our members, Jessica Brown and Hannah Morden, who did a fundraising for the Special Olympics, which is the polar bear plunge, which was done either virtually, but our 2 auxiliaries decided to have the chief and our association president doused in the cold water in a back parking lot to raise $50 for Special Olympics. So, photo there of that event, good sports, and great to see them doing that for us. Total volunteer hours for the auxiliary march was 61. We're gearing up for a busier summer as it looks like a lot of the events are coming back, planning for the Pride Parade, and I've been working with summer folk and many of the other agencies, so I expect our auxiliary will be busy. And for our core report, Constable Martin kept herself very busy. And she's been working on a partnership with the Reach Center. I think for the next board meeting, you'll see a proposal that she's looking to put together just with respect to our prisoner meals. It may be of some benefit to both OSHARE and to Reach. I'll have that for you next month. She also assisted with the electronics recycling program that you have been briefed about, I think, on the last meeting. It was very successful here. She's still working in the mentorship program with Georgia College. We have 3 officers working mentorship arrangement with the Police Foundation students from Georgian. We've had quite a string of hiring going on here, and we'll continue actually moving forward for the next couple of months. So Constable Martin was assisting some of the background investigations for part-time dispatcher, cell block monitor. And you'll see that she also dealt with 3 different variations of problem areas. 900 block of 3rd Avenue West, which one we discussed here in previous months. We did a large warrant and had some great seizures that came out of that. It just took us, as usual, some number of weeks to get that issue resolved. And I have not heard anything back from there since that warrant issue was dealt with. There's 2 other proactive issues that she's been dealing with at 7th Avenue and 2nd Avenue East, both related to buildings, sort of tenant trespassing type issues. Absent of that, questions on the quarter. We will actually, another GTQ mention will be for next month, actually, adding to the core unit as a result of the grant. So effective May 16th, Constable Derek Edmiston will be joining Siobhan in the core unit.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to reports from inspectors.
Thank you. I'll start with completion statistics for March. There's 38 operations, 16 on the east side, 6 on the west side, 16 of them in parking lots, and 9 failed remains. Half of those collisions were referred to the collision reporting center, and half of them investigated by our officers. This is down from last month when we had 49 collisions, and just down slightly from the year before when we had 40. Moving on to the community services office, continued with this traditional corporate media for social media for the service in regard to fraud prevention. There's a number of license for that, peer-to-peer youth engagement, human trafficking, polar plunge, World Dance Syndrome Day, data destruction event, which we partnered on, International Women's Day, and our ride programs. Some of the committees that we attended were the Bike and Street Safety Workshop with Wiquidon and Kiwanis, the Alpha Street Resource Meeting for an event at Easter at Alpha Street, the local immigration network with immigrants and refugees, Vital Signs Committee on housing crisis and homelessness, polar plunge, fraud prevention, rollout, presentations on social media awareness at Notre Dame to grade 7 and 8, Alexander School on social media awareness, Seasons Retirement Home on frauds and scams, and also did a presentation at the Old Sound Job Fair. It had a booth set up there to assist us in recruiting for uniform and civilian positions. And part of this month was on a course at OPC on the drug use resistance education course. And you'll see a couple photos at the last page for the data destruction event at the Legion, which was extremely successful. Very busy. Moving on to lost hours of training. We had 11 full-time members report sick or injured during the month for a total of 74 shifts and 689 hours. The majority of those hours are a result of longer-term illnesses or injuries of 3 of our members. And in addition to that, we had 6 full-time members that were absent due to illness or isolation related to the pandemic for a total of 250 hours. 3 members were on WSIP during the month. 1 is returned after a brief injury. Another is returned on modified duties, and another remains long-term. We have 2 members on LTE. For training, we had 8 members that were trained in the standard field sobriety training. This was hosted in Owen Sound by Ontario Police College at no cost to the police service. We had 1 member complete the IACP leadership and policing course. We had members attend the Police Services Act investigation course, coaching police professionals, both were at OPC. Members attended the Sexual Assault Investigators Conference, and we had 7 members attend a trauma-informed interviewing workshop in Waterton. For frontline patrol, during the month, we had 181 highway traffic act charges, 86 cautions, 9 liquor license act charges, 133 criminal drug charges, and 183 hours of foot patrol. There was 18 on-duty ride checks, 6 ride checks funded through the provincial ride grant. We had 2,573 riders checked, 19 HT charges of cautions laid, 8 criminal charges laid, and refusing to submit testing, and 2 other drivers were charged with impaired driver during patrols. That concludes my reports.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to reports from Director of Civilian Services, Keith Mooney, and please.
That'll be it again.
Okay.
In terms of board bylaws, 5 taxis licenses issued, 1 deferred denied. That will be one of the individuals that we heard from closed today. Year over year, the only real difference is the payment are up, but that is because they were closed last year. They reopened the licenses. In terms of the courts, 924 hours of special constable time to deal with 56 persons in custody, appeared by audio from the station. Really nothing of any interest to report on there other than those stats. And finally, for the records branch, we're still keeping up with our records checks, and again, year over year, we're showing a marked increase in the number of bulk searches, 9,592 completed in March versus just over 6,000 last year. So it's good news. That was the revenue generating stream that we have to try records checks. Any questions?
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to report from Director of Corporate Services. Bill Matheson, is anything
I
to
can
add?
handle
Okay.
that. So during the month of March, we had 1,481 calls for service. That's down just by 20 calls over the previous year, 1.34% decrease. And overall in calls for service, we've had a slight dip in 4.5% over the previous year. That's it for Suzanne's report.
Thank you, Inspector.
Those, do you look at those in terms of the whether they're priority 1, 2, 3, or 4? Because I understood there's more serious ones, and how do you get at that?
Yeah, so we look at priority, generally priority 2 down to priority 0, which is the more urgent calls where you're sending multiple officers. And so we do see it's about even, maybe a little bit of an increase in that area. So even though you're seeing slight decreases in the number of calls, like 20 calls over the year previous, we're still they're still responding to very serious calls, more so as we get into 2022.
We've seen the more the higher increase in the reduction of the nuisance calls and some of the things that the core officers do to prevent some of the crisis, some of the issues moving to a crisis and requiring call for service. So that proactive step is more in the nuisance type lower priority calls than it is in the high priority calls.
Any other questions? Moving on, report from Director of Information Technology Services.
After that, so there's some time spent working with Metrolinx, large-scale map development here at Dispatch, and that's almost complete now. They're using a test environment in their system with that on a cost recovery basis. City of Owen Sound BMO audit, information on payroll systems with proof of security features that they were looking for their audit. Phone system upgrades for NG 911, the primary headquarters and alternate dispatch site upgrades under the existing bell agreements are moving forward. Preparation of NG 911 quotes for neighboring police service agencies, providing NG 911 infrastructure for a service. Ongoing Grey County Fire Radio project, main infrastructure and connectivity has been completed along with necessary structures. Onboarding of subscribers in the fire departments are now moving forward, so working with the system with that. And that, of course, we do that for breakdown. Training of a new hire, IT member, and preparations beginning for outdoor cameras being replaced and upgraded around the station. So that should be moving forward in May and June, depending on some availability of equipment. That's IT report.
Any questions? Moving on, item number 14, financial reports.
So looking at the financial reports, you'll see the summary. See the summary where it now shows that we're in a variance of minus 1.97% or about $160,000. Last month, as I was explaining, we were
Chief, sorry, is that dated Feb 22?
March 22. It's down about page 62.
Crime Stoppers took a lot this month.
Yeah, they did.
So
Yeah.
last month, the February 2022 showed a variance the other direction, way over, and now it's showing a slight variance under. That relates to about $200,000 in revenue that we've received at the year to date that this is found in. So it's basically offsetting. We're tracking to be online, and then when you look at the 91% of our budget being salaries and benefits, we're pretty much in line there. We'll go through each of the different divisions. Our full-time wages and officers are in line. Our part-time officer wages are in line. Looking at section 3200. Including section 3200, you'll see the revenue is over 589,000, what would be expected year to date. The full-time dispatch wages, part-time dispatch wages are under slightly, about 19,000 something. Our overtime is over, but by 22,000 to cover some of the absences for COVID, so that balances out. Cell block monitoring, there's no revenue line generated there yet, so it appears to be under, but we update that by going through the total number down at the end of the year by the individuals assigned. One item that is higher is on 3,200 for telephones and line leases. We're hoping to switch over to the new system when 911 is approved. And right now, we currently have 2 telephone systems operating, so we're a little bit higher on that area right now. And other than that, everything else remains going in line where it's supposed to be. And should be good financially moving forward. Subject to any questions? Then move on to the expenses accounts for approval for the month of March, being $76,113. For motion to make those payments.
Joe, thank you. Second, you, okay. All in favor? Right, moving on to
My chief's activity report. Took some time off in March, and the rest of the items were pretty much similar. The OSPSB board and zone duties will drop off. I was replaced as the zone representative for the zone 5, so my attendance at board meetings won't be as busy and as frequent, so that will drop off. I'll spend here. And other than that, the rest of the things, there's been quite a few hours spent dispatching NG911 meetings, as you see, throughout the month. That has to do with the inquiries that we've got in relation to services, providing services for other municipalities on the business side of things. There were quite a few meetings for court security and courts as they relaunch and they started looking at processes and how things have been going. So there's some time spent discussion with the courts and the Crown's office on some of the issues relating to warrants and endorsements of warrants, those types of things. So that's a summary of my activities. You also see the policy and procedure review. We're wrapping that up. I anticipate quite a bit. We moved really quickly in April, and I anticipate that we have 1 or 2 mornings left with Dave Preston, and then we'll be moving on. We've got about half of them now. Start sending out to everybody, so we'll update all of our procedures, and then everybody will have to read those, and then the board policies are once the procedures are done, we'll be meeting with the board members, going over the board policies, so that whole project will come to a wrap before the summer.
Is it possible to have an overview of NG911? Sometimes bring us, we're familiar with exactly what it means. I think we've all heard what it anticipated, but
Yeah, I can arrange for Director Hill to come in.
Anybody else
wants to
interested in
say, where we're at, where everything's at. Hopefully at that point we can update as well an announcement from the province about the release of $208 million over the next 3 years, but there are no details, so hopefully there'll be some details for next month.
even knowing what the advantages are and how they're accessed.
Yeah, the biggest adjustment is that it's going from older technology to newer voice technology, internet-based, and the ability to receive text is the first section of that, as opposed to just texting for their. But I'll ask them to come forward with a presentation next month, including the options that we've been discussing with other municipalities opposed to what exactly that means.
I'm just excited about the opportunity. I understand where citizens can send pictures of accidents and pictures of impaired people that they're bringing to attention.
Yeah, that's not an initial rollout phase, but that's the direction.
Nice to know what it's all about.
Sure.
I thank Garth for mentioning that, because I was going to mention two things as well. I found it incredibly helpful a few months ago. I won't mention the officer's name because we're in open session. But we did hear in closed session from an officer on an issue involving drugs and how police do their job that way. I don't know if I speak for myself, but it occurred to me that I would find it very helpful for the board if we could hear from a officer involved with CORE. You know, it doesn't have to be an hour and a half, Chief, but just to sort of put some flesh on the bones of what we read. And also, I have a personal interest. I guess it comes from my practice. I do a lot of sexual assault related work, and I would find it of great interest to. I noticed that there's Officer Martin, I think, is that,
Yes.
and a few others went for training and so forth. And I think you have a dedicated unit. Or is that too strong a word to use, Chief?
We have specialists within our
Yeah, okay.
criminal investigation. Right?
But same thing. I would find it very useful if we could hear from somebody like that for 45 minutes and just say, here's the protocols that we're engaged with. Here's what guides us both provincially and what we've learned locally works for best practices. I would find that a useful thing. I don't know if I speak for myself, but and perhaps sprinkle that through the meetings over the course of the next while.
We did have a presentation by Constable Martin, which was excellent. The last two
That was
meetings.
one of the video, the promotional video. For the
Yeah.
Open Session.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Yes.
Just got one question for Craig. Are you not involved with Grey Bruce Child and Family Services?
Yeah.
I don't see that in your list. I got rave reviews on your being involved from 2 different sources on that board within the last few weeks. So they're very pleased to have the chief of police there, understanding what's going on and being able to share the information. And I just didn't see it on that list there.
The
It's
only
good.
reason it's not on there is that that's off, whatever you consider off duty, but this is on duty time and
That's a personal.
you're not paying when I'm there, I guess is that's the way I broke it down.
Well, we appreciate your contribution to the community when you're doing that type of stuff on top of everything else you're doing. So
And you helped with the hire too then, right? Yeah.
That was included, because that was part of my getting on the board.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry, just to reply in response to that, great ideas, and we were trying to bring somebody in every month to do things, but certainly will step those up.
My preference would be for open if we could, because I think the community should learn about these things. You might get 1 or 2 people wanting to zoom in.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I have noted here for 1991, the 4 officers, sexual assault, and some information related to trauma-informed interview and changes related to that. Also, our high risk and parole relationship with the probation and parole office. We have an officer assigned to liaison for high risk offenders and domestic violence high risk offenders. Hopefully, our heads together and put more.
when are we back to present to council and have a council meeting?
I'm not sure of that.
Not the fall.
Should have to ask
Just in the
council.
fall. Fall's going to be gong show season, so
Yeah.
There's no-
What does that mean?
election season.
Gosh.
But just everything goes kind of
Oh,
gets lost in the shuffle.
I thought some decorum might be lost in the meetings.
No.
And
No, I was just thinking.
certainly, some of those items too, we can bring the joint training sessions that are hosting.
So I wonder if we should back that up sort of more to, I know we don't have any meetings, city council meetings planned for August. I wonder if we should back it up to even June, July, something like that, as a presentation. Just
Pretty sure the city manager's still on the line, so I'll arrange with Tim Simmons to arrange for some type of a date and make some presentations.
good. These are the types of things that maybe we can bring forward to the to the public through Rogers TV, through the council meetings.
Yes, great.
We're in the early planning stages of fingers crossed, no more COVID, but for the fall to actually start our police academy that we've talked about doing for 3 years and haven't been able to do. So there may be an opportunity there once we publish the agenda for what each night is, that should anybody have a special interest on more particular topics, that you'll be able to sit in on those as well. So,
Mhm.
As well, one of the things that we did discuss, we will be working with Audit to bring back cultural awareness training. And we've got a couple weeks proposed for September. And Cheryl attended last time, but I think it's valuable to have everybody attend. That's a possibility. So there'll be a whole week. And it's a good opportunity.
And I think there's also a date in December too.
There's a date for the city manager in December for council. My computer went out. I don't think so.
Okay. Right, moving on to item number 16, other items of new business. And earlier today in closed session, we heard from 2 individuals who applied for a taxi license and were subsequently denied. Under section 7.2 of the taxi bylaw, any applicant is denied a license by the chief of police under section .1 shall be permitted to appear before the board to show cause why such license should not be denied. As part of their presentation, they provided personal information related to the application, which was heard in closed session. After providing them ample time to state the case, the board unanimously agreed to support Chief Ambler's decision to deny them the taxi license at this time. Moving on to item number B, annual report.
So you'll see attached the agenda and up on the screen just momentarily. See the 2021 annual report, and I want to thank the staff as well who put all this together, particularly our new executive assistant Amy Gabler, who couldn't be here today. But certainly there's a lot of effort went into this and refreshed the annual report from last year and made some changes that we brought forward to the last session for input from the board. It's annual report on behalf of the board complete. But certainly, if we highlight through it, certainly highlights our involvement with the community and our public and our non-police activities, as well as our policing activities. Here.
Liz?
Some of our stats, calls for service, total number of calls handled by our dispatch center is significant. Go through our charges laid. Some of the comparisons, last year we were at 17,562 calls for service. This year we're just down slightly, and we were at 2,090 charges, so our charges went down as well. It's nice to see. I think some of those proactive initiatives would like to make a stronger link to them, but certainly our calls and some of our proactive work seems to be working. Highlight our youth and policing initiative, and for those that may be watching this open meeting, there presently are calls for this year's youth out in the community. So if you know anybody who's interested in the policing career or has an interest in looking for summer employment with the police and working with the community, there's an opportunity we'll be looking at for youth again this summer, and I've received several applications already. It closes sometime in May. So I want to highlight too the work that Jason Cranny did there, and it's particularly with our newcomer youth and making one of those positions dedicated to one of our newcomer youth moving forward in order to allow them to get some work experience and exposure to the police service and the community. It was great. I wouldn't say pilot, it was a great opportunity last year, and we want to move forward with that again this year. A number of other community initiatives, the Rainbow Crosswalk and Camping Watch that happen on a regular basis. Our community services officer or our community response officer core officer will do walks with local partner agencies just to check on well-being of individuals who are living rough on the streets or in encampments and provide supports. That's been going on for several years now. It's very well accepted. Police involvement. Highlighted the cultural mindfulness training that took place starting last year and move forward again this year. Our auxiliary unit, I can't say enough about the work and the hours that they donate. The last couple of years with COVID, it's been affecting that ability of our very dedicated volunteers to help, but they've still done really well, and we highlighted the food drive. Our engagement with schools, well, several other communities are looking at their school resource and school liaison officers. We have tremendous support ultimately from the schools, and we're asked to participate a lot, including lockdown drills and positive ticketing, traffic awareness campaigns, those types of things. Newcomer families and youth ambassador program, Special Constable Grady does a lot of work with support that are here for newcomer families, building that relationship and feel comfortable with the police presence in the community. The OIPRD had a total of 12 complaints, which is really very, very small for a service. Of those, 9 of them they came from 9 different individuals. One was a service, and the rest were conduct complaints. And I think speaks volumes to the officers that we hired, and the professionalism of the service, that none of those were substantiated. And there was only one that went forward that wasn't being investigated. It was withdrawn. Information technology, and there were a number of large-scale projects, including being leading Canada in the NG911 implementation, and that speaks volumes for the service of our size. And they also highlighted the alternate backup dispatch center that was redone last year, and our work with the city, with the county, Grey County Fire Radio project, getting everybody online. So just for everybody's knowledge, everybody from different fire services in Grey County, despite being dispatched by us once on scene, couldn't speak to each other. It created a real problem for fire officer safety in the rural areas, especially when working, several services working together, but we couldn't speak and know what the other was doing or saying. So they put a proposal through the county, and it's gone forward. We're helping them implement that and doing the infrastructure with the vendor and doing monitoring for that, so that all the services can switch to a common channel of communications for safety purposes. Our mobile mental health and addictions response team continue the partnership with the Canadian Mental Health, Ray Bruce, and our CDR officer who responds in plain clothes and works with the mental health clinician, trying to avoid, in many cases, false service to the police, and as well looking at avoiding unnecessary referrals to the emergency department. And 69% of the 1,108 mental health calls for service were involved with provide immediate assistance and referrals. So obviously it ends up with a better result for everybody involved at all different levels, whether that's healthcare or mental health, and in particular the individual who's experiencing a crisis or mental health issue. So we continue to work with them, and I have a meeting scheduled for this coming month to meet with Ray Bruce, mental health, looking at other alternatives and expansion of ideas and program, trying to move forward to try and help grow that project. The reintroduction of CORE was a significant event for 2021, and I think we've all heard a lot about that. But, the work that they've done downtown with business owners in the community, and shout out to Constable Siobhan Martin, who took the lead on that, was the person in there to get the project going last year. Criminal investigations, we've highlighted a lot of those. Unfortunately, we had a homicide last year that coming up on a year now. Unfortunate loss of life, but on a policing side of things, the 4 individuals have been charged, and they're still before the courts. 2 are in custody. And then we highlighted the human trafficking investigation, the open source analyst that was involved with that, and some further follow-up by CID. And some drug offenses in relation to February, significant seizure. And drug and firearms. Unfortunately, there's been a big increase in the number of firearms in 2021 that were seized and involved in offenses. But I think that's a sign of the times, and it's not just in Owen Sound, it's throughout the province. So I highlighted a couple of investigations and things that were seized, and the firearms and weapons that were seized during those investigations. Probably the highlight here is the offense types and comparisons year by year. Obviously, we had a murder this year, so there's a huge increase, 100% there. But if you look at all the other arrows as you go through columns and the categories from sexual assault, aggravated assaults, there was a change. The assault with a weapon, all the other arrows are pointing downward, which is a big positive, especially when you're looking at crime severity index and all those items. And I think that I think that should feel recognized as some good work by the police service. Some of the things we control, some of the things we don't control, but certainly when you take a summary at the end of the year and get a snapshot and you see that all those things go down, I think that's something that you have to highlight and make sure that it gets out to the And
Yeah, back to the, when you say offense type, a lot of charges I know are being diverted more and more. So when I see an offense type, can you just help me out with that? Does it mean a charge was actually laid?
No, that's the number of incidents in relation. So, so say for example, break and enter, there may not be a charge laid, so it's every break and enter report that we talk. So it's the number of incidents.
Okay, so the resolution's irrelevant. Okay. So then it's a very accurate number then. Yeah.
And then as we continue along to the next number of police reports and records and the work that they're doing, the arrest reports, all those things, number of charges, warrants processed. You see warrants processed has increased, but that's a result of COVID. The courts weren't open, people are getting released, they're getting released back in the community. They want to reduce the number of people in custody for pre-court charges or pre-conviction charges. So the number of warrants we process are up significantly. And collision reports as well, collisions, and that can be affected a lot by weather, but certainly some of it is also to do with enforcement and visibility. And those are all going down as well. Salaries and surplus. So if you compare 2021 to 2020, the overall police budget, the distribution is almost identical. It's 0.1% different between benefits and supply of purchase services. So, but it's stayed at 91% salary and benefits is from year to year. Capital projects remain the same as well. So. Other than that, that is the annual report. As I said, Amy did an amazing job putting all that together, and hasn't gone unnoticed the work that she's done. So,
I think it's fantastic, Chief. Will hard copies of that be distributed to our stakeholders and members of council, or
yeah,
and perhaps members of the board?
I've got one already.
Yeah.
Well,
At least
you
a
got a draft.
Draft. Hasn't got the numbers.
So yeah, there were some numbers missing from the draft last month.
Okay.
So we finished that and updated it, and I think now this is the public production of the annual report. So we'll send it out to our committee partners, and we'll send it to the media as well to give them an update on the progress.
And it'll also be posted on our website.
Yeah.
Having it on the cloud will be a good add-on, but I just think having us with a copy and stakeholders with a copy is healthy because you refer back to various elements. It's excellent.
So total payroll went up less than 1%. I can do it now.
Yeah, 7206, 7096, yes.
It went up under 2%,
Oh, yes.
under 1%.
And that's kind of that's offset through revenue. So that the collective agreement increases with more than that, but 1.9, but it's offset through what we're doing here.
I'd like to advertise a bit of that at the next council meeting.
You'll have a copy.
Maybe I'll draft an email if you don't mind, Craig, just summarizing what I see out of that report. If I'm wrong, you can let me know.
Nothing else then? Having dealt with all of the items on the agenda, we'll terminate the closed session at 11:40.
Open session.
Open session, sorry. Meeting closed, it's so closed.
Yes.